She turned off her phone flashlight, eased her window shut, and walked into the dark. And she would never walk back through that door again. Somewhere out on a forgotten stretch of road, 13 shots were about to end 2 teenage lives. And the only witnesses would be a handful of deleted text messages that investigators had to pull back from the dead. In the early hours of September 17th, 2022, 14-year-old Lyric Woods slipped out of her house into the night. Her parents were asleep, with no idea their daughter had plans. By morning, she was gone from her bed, and she would never come home again. Around midday, 2 ATV riders on a rural road near the county line made a discovery that would haunt them. Lying before them were the bodies of 2 teenagers, killed in a hail of gunfire. Lyric Woods and 18-year-old Devin Clark. How the two knew each other wasn't immediately clear. Neither had a phone on them, but buried in the wreckage of their deleted conversations was a plan, and that plan would lead investigators straight to a killer. Just before 3 p.m. on Sunday, September 18th, 2022, those same ATV riders in Ellen, North Carolina came across the scene near Buckhorn Road on the border of Orange and Alamance counties. A male and a female, lying on their backs, side by side, arms stretched wide. When we found them, I realized I was looking at 2 dead bodies. They were just lying there beside the road. It was a wooded stretch beside a utility access road, tucked under a power line, a route almost nobody used. Deputies confirmed both victims had been shot multiple times. A brutal, merciless attack. Neighbors later remembered hearing gunfire in the early hours of Saturday. Before we go further, I want to know where you're watching this from. Drop your city and the time where you are right now in the comments. I read every one. Now, back to the story. I heard about close to 10 shots going off, like an automatic. Then it paused for a bit, and 5 more went off. Hidden in the brush was 14-year-old Lyric Woods, a freshman at Cedar Ridge High School. Beside her lay 18-year-old Devin Clark, a standout on the football and basketball teams at Eastern Alamance High School. Both had been reported missing that same weekend. Finding them here was the outcome no one had let themselves imagine. Tell me it's not her. He got out of the Tahoe and just hugged me and said, "I'm so sorry." We fell to the ground. I knew then my baby was never coming home again. It's awful to lose her, but to think about how scared she must have been, crying out for us. Lyric loved to laugh. She played volleyball, sang, danced, and joked constantly with her friends. Most photos of her caught her mid-laugh, because that was simply who she was. She was the oldest sister to 5 siblings, and her family says she never met a stranger. Her favorite things were her eyelash curler and her Air Jordans. But more than anything, what defined her was how much she loved her family. Exactly how Lyric and Devin Clark became friends is still unclear. Devin, a senior at Eastern Alamance from nearby Mebane, had built a reputation as a standout wide receiver, the kind of player who could turn a game with one catch and a sprint down the sideline. But he was known for more than football. He loved music, spent hours recording with friends, and rode dirt bikes and ATVs constantly, which is exactly how his community chose to honor him afterward, with a memorial ride down the same roads he used to love. It was just unnecessary. Tragic. Uncalled for. Evil. We're talking about kids. These are babies. 2 families had to go to bed without their kids at night. That's the most sickening thing I've ever seen. In the days after, both families and the wider community were consumed not just by grief, but by confusion. Nobody understood how Devin and Lyric ended up together, alone, on a deserted road in the middle of the night. He was an athlete, a good person, a good friend. He had a good heart, and he never hurt anyone. For someone to do this to him, I just need answers. Who gave them a ride? Who dropped them off there? The crime scene told part of the story. Investigators found 13 spent shell casings scattered across 3 distinct areas, matching, almost exactly, the total number of gunshot wounds on the 2 victims. Lyric had been shot 7 times, 2 from the front, striking her arm and shoulder, suggesting she turned to run when the shooting started. Then she was hit in the back, followed by 2 final shots at close range. Devin's wounds followed a similar pattern. Shot first from the front, once in the shoulder, then in the back. 6 wounds total. 3 shell casings were grouped together, likely ejected during the first shots fired face-to-face. 5 more were scattered along a trail. Fired, investigators believe, during a desperate chase. The final 4 were found closest to the bodies. The last shots, fired once the running had already stopped. Witnesses who heard the gunfire described 2 distinct bursts, roughly 10 minutes apart. First 8 to 10 shots, then a long silence, then 3 to 5 more. That matched the physical evidence exactly. An initial attack, an attempt to escape, a pursuit, and then a final unnecessary volley. There were also signs Devin's body had been moved, dragged, based on the dirt across his chest and legs, and later rolled onto his back. The murder weapon itself was never recovered. Devin's father, Dexter, reported his son missing that Sunday morning, just hours before the bodies were found. At first, he assumed Devin had crashed at a friend's place. But by Sunday, even Devin's friends had no idea where he was. Dexter also reported something else missing: his gray and green 9mm handgun, along with roughly 23 rounds of ammunition. That ammunition matched the shell casings at the scene. Devin, it turned out, had taken the gun that would later kill him. His phone, backpack, and personal belongings were also gone, but data pulled through his wireless provider gave investigators a partial picture. Much of his messaging lived on Snapchat, an app that erases conversations automatically unless someone saves them. Only fragments survived, but those fragments were enough. Shortly after 12:30 a.m., Devin messaged a group chat of 11 friends. Who on wheels and want free buns? Asking for a ride, and hinting at what he was offering in return. In a separate conversation running from 11 p.m. to just after 1 a.m., Devin arranged something with a friend online. Talk of Lyric, of a ride, of who else might come along. The friend's car was out of gas. Then a 2-hour gap in the messages, until 10:05 a.m., when Devin sent 2 laughing emojis. Nothing more from that account survived. Lyric's parents kept her phone at night. It was still in the house when they reported her missing, but she had access to an iPad, and she'd been messaging on it until nearly 1:30 in the morning. In a conversation investigators later tied to Devin's account, she was planning to sneak out. She sent her address, a screenshot marking exactly where to park, and one final instruction: when you get here, turn off your headlights until I get in the car. That was the last message anyone could recover from Lyric Woods. Nothing in her messages suggested she knew what Devin had offered a friend in exchange for a ride. There's no evidence that subject ever came up between them at all, but it appears Devin's arrangement got him transportation that night, and that Lyric climbed into a car that wasn't the one she expected. In the days after, both families pleaded publicly for information. One post from Devin's mother, Tiffany, reached a man named Christian Sykes, a man who didn't know either victim, but who knew someone whose story sounded disturbingly familiar. I met this boy, Isaiah. I don't know his last name, but I have his Snapchat, and that's usually how we talked. I gave the officer his number. I do have his phone. Christian had known 17-year-old Isaiah for about 6 months, mostly through a cousin. They get together, smoke, not much more. Then one night, on a video call, Isaiah showed him a gun and started telling a story Christian could barely process. He said he picked up a dude. Didn't give me a name, just said he picked up a guy, and they were going to pick up a girl, and then go do stuff. I asked what he meant, and he said the guy was pointing a laser at him with the gun. Told him to stop. Multiple times. Said the gun had bullets in it. They started wrestling over it. He said the guy's finger was on the trigger, and it went off near his own legs. Then he got the gun and shot him. And then he said the girl in the back seat saw everything. So he turned around and shot her too. This is Sunday. At first, Christian didn't believe a word of it. Isaiah told the whole thing with no emotion at all, which made it feel even less real. It wasn't until the murders hit social media that the pieces clicked into place. It was like, no remorse. That's why I never looked at him as evil, you know? If you could kill 2 people and show nothing, I thought he was just making something up. Because you don't laugh through a story like that. Not if it's real. 17-year-old Isaiah Ross had moved from Delaware to North Carolina in 2021 to live with his mother and siblings. He briefly attended Eastern Alamance, the same school as Devin, though records show he was only enrolled for 6 days. His family described him as quiet, cheerful, into basketball and gadgets, but also someone who occasionally found trouble. No joke, I'll show you they hit me with 5 charges. After Christian went to police, cell data placed Isaiah at Devin's house that night, then at Lyric's, then heading toward Buckhorn Road, both phones traveling together between 1:45 and 2:14 a.m. afterward. Isaiah drove to a nearby gas station in his mother's white GMC pickup. Surveillance footage caught him alone at 2:20 a.m., walking and wearing a patterned jacket over a black hoodie, the tips of his hair dyed blonde. He drove back toward the crime scene once more before finally heading home. Days later, he and his mother argued over damage to her truck's fender, and she kicked him out with help from his stepfather, who, unknowingly, was also Devin's cousin. Isaiah bought a bus ticket and left for Delaware. Because of his age, his identity stayed shielded even after prosecutors filed 2 murder charges against him. On October 2nd, he was finally arrested in Delaware. The next day, a grand jury indicted him on 2 counts of first-degree murder. He was 17, but he'd be tried as an adult. We have some theories, some evidence, but we can't speculate on motive right now. And honestly, we may never know it. Sometimes cases go all the way through, even get conviction, but if the defendant never talks, the motive just doesn't come out. Isaiah pleaded not guilty, claiming self-defense. His version put the gun in Devin's hand, not his own. In January 2026, on the eve of trial, prosecutors offered a plea, 2 counts of second-degree murder, 20 to 25 years on each. He turned it down instantly. No further negotiations. Isaiah wanted a jury. I ask you to keep the timeline in mind, the evidence, and when the truth is laid bare, I will ask you to hold him accountable. I will ask you to find him guilty. Lyric's mother, Elizabeth, testified about that final ordinary night. Ice cream with her parents, a hug on the couch, a shower that ran too long. That was the last time I saw her. I had her sister go wake her up gently, and she came back crying, said she wasn't there. I told my husband, call 911 right now. It's not like her to worry me like that. Dexter Clark described the same disorienting confusion, assuming his son had just stayed with friends, until the silence stretched too long to ignore. Isaiah's mother stood by him through the trial, frequently mocking witnesses and the prosecution online. Where we're from, we call that country therapy. That's just how we do things. The state's key witness, Christian Sykes, turned out to be far from airtight on the stand. He placed the shooting inside a moving car, a detail contradicted by every piece of physical evidence, which placed it in the brush along the trail. He described the gun as black. Devin's father had reported it gray and green. He remembered the getaway vehicle as a white GMC Terrain. Isaiah's mother's truck was, in fact, a black pickup. The defense called only one witness, Isaiah himself, now 21. He testified he'd never met Lyric before that night and believed he was picking up 2 people, not one. He claimed Devin argued with Lyric after they got out of the truck, that she told him she wouldn't be controlled, that she'd go to police, and that Devin then pulled a gun and shot her. Isaiah said Devin turned the gun on him next, and in the struggle that followed, he wrestled it away. Panicked, he said he dragged Devin off the road so he wouldn't be hit by traffic, then drove to the gas station and doubled back only to retrieve a hoodie he'd left behind. It just felt like my brain was melting. I didn't know what to do. I just wanted to go home. But his account left holes. It didn't explain the 10-minute gap between bursts of gunfire that witnesses described. The dirt pattern on Devin's body contradicted his claim that he'd never turned it over. And Devin's vape, which Isaiah said Devin handed him before getting out of the truck, somehow ended up back in Devin's own pocket. Isaiah also accused Christian of ulterior motives, suggesting Christian feared exposure over something Isaiah claimed to have witnessed. After more than 10 hours of deliberation across several days, interrupted once by an ice storm, the jury reached a partial verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder in the death of Devin Clark. On the charge involving Lyric Woods, they remained deadlocked, and the judge declared a mistrial on that count. Isaiah Ross was sentenced to 20 to 25 years for Devin's murder. His mother went live on social media afterward, framing the outcome as a win. Prosecutors left the case for Lyric's murder open, with a hearing scheduled for March 2026 to decide whether to retry, offer a plea, or drop the charge entirely. To this day, Lyric's mother keeps the walls of their home covered in photos of her daughter exactly as she was, laughing, smiling, and fully alive. If a story like this one matters to you, subscribe so you don't miss the next case. And let me know in the comments what part of this one stuck with you most.